coaching goes deeper in terms of finding a purpose that is beyond projects or, AI and these kind of new buzzwords. And I've always had that in me, sort of helping people. I've probably read most personal development books that there are. I've probably done most of these personality tests and finding your strengths and how figuring out what you really are meant to do. And this whole, field of personal development or self-help, we call it, it has exploded. And as you know, everyone's almost a coach. And a friend of mine, I launched my website yesterday. A friend of mine said, like, everybody is a coach. Even if you have no talents, just become a coach, as a joke. But in all seriousness, I think it is a hugely important field.
In the spirit of reinventing yourself, Mario, give us a few words about how did you get started with wanting to be a coach? We should ask that question.
Yeah, thank you, Marina, for the introduction and your warm words and warm welcome. And thank you for everything you're doing. I think, yeah, I just want to say that you built this community, you are giving back, and that's the spirit for me as well. That was important to me. So I picked an organization that's a private college here in Dublin called Kingstown College. And it was a virtual program for 6 months where we met every week, and it was just a fantastic community and meeting like-minded folks who wanted to go deeper and learn about helping others and learn about what coaching is and how it differs to mentoring or mental health. It gets looped in with all these other programs and interventions, but it is very different and it can be so many different things. So I worked with my own coach, exploring what I want to do with my life or what I could do differently. And that's how I found this institution. And so I worked with my own coach via Modern Health, a platform that you may be familiar with. So one of my employers had coaching and mental health support for employees, which was amazing. So we could use a few coaching hours there, find a coach, work with them. And that's how I discovered maybe I want to do that. So that's really how I got started.
You're doing something that's different than just going to a counselor or just going to, I found a book on self help. Can you tell us briefly what you do as a coach that's different and kind of what people can expect?
Yeah, that makes sense. I think we learn to also define our own coaching. So everyone has sort of their own definition of coaching. There isn't really one universally accepted definition of what it is. I think for me, it's all about change. In the spirit of reinventing yourself, it's sort of you have items that require change, or you figure out, you come to a point where you maybe get stuck and you want to talk to somebody. Coaching essentially is a conversation, is a two-way, is a conversation of what you and I are having. You could have a coaching conversation with your manager if they're familiar with a coaching framework. We often talk about building a coaching culture nowadays in the organization. So it means that someone is listening. That's one of the key elements is active listening, selective listening. It doesn't mean, a lot of times we're listening, we're not really listening. We're sort of saying, yeah, we're nodding and, we have Zoom meetings every day and that kind of all day, every day. Coaching is an hour of really intense listening where you might take notes, but you might really summarize then back what you've heard. So you really actively listen. You say, have I heard this correctly? Marina, you're telling me this is what's going on for you right now. So it's a very specific skill of listening. And then the other thing is asking open-ended questions is to reflect and to ask the client or the coachee who is at the core of the conversation. That's the important thing, to ask them, okay, what do you want to do about this? Rather than me saying, I'm your mentor, here's what I've done in my career. Maybe you could consider that, because as a coach, I don't want to tell people what to do. I want to put the focus on them and let the coachee or the client guide the conversation, and we bring the framework. We bring the questions and they bring the content, is what we say. So I hope that answers that initial question of what it is, how it differs to other interventions. I think it's about empathy, right? I mean, this is the main thing as humans coming together, having these conversations. It's first of all, it's acknowledging and creating a judgment-free and a vulnerable space. I mean, that the more you open up, the more you get out of coaching, and it can be a tough conversation. And you don't want to go in and say, "Oh, the coach can help you do anything." It's not like we're not Superman, whatever. It's acknowledging what is the problem, what is the challenge, what is the item that requires change. Toxic positivity is something I've heard. I've used it myself, where the self-help industry, this is a bit of a cliche, and sort of, the perception of people is, oh, if I get up at 5 a.m. and I do my ice bath and then I do my, all of these things, then I will be okay and then I will find a job. It's not like that, but at the same time, it's acknowledging that you have control. I think no matter what you're going through, you always have control of how you react to things. That is rooted in stoicism, that is rooted in mindfulness, and anything, the way you react to whatever is going on in your external world, that is with you 100%. And coaching applies that and says, what is the least minimum thing you can do? Almost an MVP approach. We're building a software, we're building a new product. What is a small thing I can do today? And then iterate on that. So I think, yeah, it's important to acknowledge there is a problem. You're going through something maybe really terrible. You're losing somebody, you lost a job. We're acknowledging that. And as a coach, the role isn't to help. We do need mental health as well, maybe alongside. And it's important to highlight that difference. But as a coach, I can listen and I can reflect with you and help you think things through. And that's the difference. So yeah, I mean, it's all about empathy. You are the creator of your own life. That sounds cliche, but it is true if you think about it. What is the
Yeah.
least thing that you can do today to get you started on your big goal or on your positive change? I mean, there's maybe one small thing every one of us can do tonight. Maybe one small thing takes 5 minutes, but is getting us on the way to maybe more positive changes.
Can you talk about this? Your highs and lows.
Yeah, absolutely. It's one of my favorite, let's call it a coaching tool that I've learned about. It's usually used for leadership and executive coaching, which is one way to apply coaching principles to maybe more higher up or more experienced executives in a company, but it can be used by anybody. And I really like to do it it's almost a reassessment, a resetting where you are exercise. So imagining a timeline from maybe starting your career, maybe not your birth, but say you enter the workplace. If this is about career coaching, if the items that you want to talk about relate to your career, you imagine you enter the workplace at some point and you are at some point on that scale now on the timeline. So looking back, it's an exercise to just look back through your milestones, and these are your highs and your lows. You also will remember negative milestones, and it's important to acknowledge those as well. So it's essentially, you have a very simple X and Y axis. You draw a line about halfway down the middle, which is your neutral, 0. Your highs go above and your lows will go below that line. And you just look back, reflecting on that for a few minutes. What are the things that you have experienced in your life or in your career, in your work life? And it's just a way of gaining perspective. And then you might write down the thoughts that you have in relation to each of these milestones, because sometimes that's what I experienced. I went through a layoff, which you would put on a low. It's a super big low. It's as low as you can be. But actually, looking back, you think, well, that place wasn't good for me, and I'm glad that I'm out, for example. This might be one of the realizations afterwards. So it's really a good way to reset and say, this is where I am now, and that helps me to see where I want to go. Looking back is sort of like, I need to know where I'm going first and where I'm coming from. So it's one of my favorite things to do at the beginning, working with a new client. Let's see where you've been. What are your milestones? Sometimes we call it finding your why. We also have to go
Mm.
into the past to fish for these little nuggets. So Simon Sinek wrote this book about finding your why, or get your why. It talks about nuggets, and these nuggets are essentially your career milestones, and they are high and low lights at the same time.
Oh my gosh, thank you so much. That is so powerful. I can see absolutely doing that like every year, a New Year's thing. All right. So, and then you're saying every night, this is a beautiful idea. Write down three things you're grateful for on that day or that went well.
Yeah, I think this is in a similar way. It's to understand our milestones, our successes. I think a lot of times, and this is an observation I'm making from seeing a lot of clients that are women, and there's a lot of sort of maybe low confidence. Maybe there is imposter syndrome, is a lot of the things that we hear and we talk about a lot, is we're not proud of our achievements, and we're sort of more humble and like less loud about the achievements. So this is a way to say, what have I done today that was a success that I can be proud of? Or from a more mindfulness point of view, what are the things that I'm grateful for? Gratitude is a huge thing. Overcoming life's challenges, helping with resilience is today. A simple thing could be you had a nice lunch. You had a really healthy lunch, and And if you do that, even for 30 days, a lot of people have seen such an uptick. I don't have the data, but it is, a lot of increase in happiness and gratitude and sort of finding life more positive that way. It could be very simple things. It could be, I got up and I didn't wear my hoodie this morning. I actually wore real clothes. That kind of thing is something that we can do that might help you with your shift in perspective.
Oh,
I'm
yeah.
very thankful to be here with Mario today.
Oh, hi, Stefan.
Am I
Stefan,
speaking out of line? How's it going?
That's good.
thank
That's
you.
good. Yeah, and when we get toward the end of the session, we'll circle back to our audience and kind of check in with everybody how they're doing on these things. Yeah, it's awesome. I think quite a few of us have been talking about gratitude and making a list. In this live coaching, we're going to do a bit of a exercise, a live demonstration of a coaching. So the mini goal. So as a female founder, I have some self-induced obstacles. And so I've already mentioned this to you, Mario. What's the question you're going to ask me?
Yeah, thank you, Marina. I'll just do my little spiel that I would usually do because what's important, you welcome somebody to the session. I would say hugely important is confidentiality. So thank you, Marina, that you're, sharing this with me. And this is super important. I'm actually bound to the ICF Code of Ethics, which is the International Coaching Federation. So I want to always highlight that to my clients. I think confidentiality is the most important thing. Unless there is any, I see any way that you could harm yourself or others, I would never breach that confidentiality. So this is important. The topics that you discuss with me between you and I, and obviously today you're the audience here. So this is also applying to everyone listening. So thank you for that. You had a lot of thought around saying that something is holding you back. That's already a step further from a lot of people that come to say, oh, I want coaching and this is my goal, but I don't know where I am. And so what I would usually ask you is you've had a little bit of thought around you're a female founder. Um, you wanted to do things. What is sort of your goal with, rather than saying this is the challenge, could you formulate a goal around where you are now and what you want to do next? What outcome would you want to have at the end of a conversation with me? Is this
Mhm,
something you could think about? And then you formulate a goal around that.
mhm. Okay, very good. Okay, so I think number one is stop overthinking. You know, um, how do I get there?
Okay, so this is obviously a big topic, but we could do a small version of that. So the
Okay.
goal, usually I would also take notes. Another thing that I want to highlight, I hope that's okay with you. I will also keep these notes safe. No one can access those notes. And then I would also encourage you to take notes. So write down your goal. You mentioned your goal is a mini version of that is, okay, how do you stop overthinking? Your goal is I want to overthink less. And even narrow it down. You want to overthink less in what capacity? Is it when you are presenting a webinar? Is it when you are having a conversation in work? What kind of make your goal even more specific, and then we'll look into that. So formulate a sentence that is your goal. I want to overthink uh, less in such and such capacity.
Ooh, interesting. Okay. And so you're saying break it down, break it down, break it down.
Yeah, because then we get to really, crack into it and sort of focus on it. So because overthinking, perfectionism, those are very big topics. And one session is not going to get you to stop overthinking, but you want to have actionable outcomes. You want to have action items you can take away with you. So your bigger goal, and this is another thing I forgot to say, we may work together for 4 or 5 sessions, sometimes more. I think 4 sessions of 1 hour is more or less normal, is sort of a default. Because that means, okay, in 4 hours you can make good progress. So let's also think about you might work with me 4 times, and the overall goal is to stop overthinking at the end of that. But again, for simplicity of today, the goal is to stop overthinking. Okay. Now, talk to me more about your goal and why it's important to you, or what does it do to you that you are overthinking at the moment? How
Interesting.
is it
Oh,
affecting your life? How is it impacting your life?
when I first have an idea, there's nothing stopping me. But as soon as I start overthinking, everything grinds down and goes down into a hole. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, that makes sense. And thank you for sharing that with me. So to summarize, the goal is to overthink less. At the moment, it's keeping you from probably virtually anything. It's keeping you from launching your business idea or, even doing more things. So again, we talked about the meaning that the goal has to you. So tell me a tiny bit more about if you were to achieve that goal, what would it mean to you? What does it look like
Oh,
if you were to not overthink?
I think I would just make millions of dollars. No, I'm kidding. I would be very successful. I would get a lot more accomplished and I would just fly with it because that energy is always there. It's just like there's a lid on top of that or a light in a basket and it's held down.
Mm. Okay, and that's interesting, those words, light in the basket, holding yourself back. In terms of your goal, we've heard why this is important to you because you want to share more. What I'm hearing is you have so much to give and to share, but the fear, the perfectionism, overthinking is holding you back from that a little bit. So this is kind of your reality where you are now and why you want to work on your goal of overthinking less. So we call this the GROW model, which is the G stands for your goal, R is your reality, O would be your options. So I would like to kind of explore with you, if you were to work on your goal to overthink less, what are the things that you can do? Or what are the things that you have so far done? If you think back, how are you trying to overcome that fear and what are you doing to make progress on your goal to overthink less?
Interesting. So when I think back, I think something that helps, and just what you had talked about earlier in that timeline exercise, when I think back about all the stuff I've done, it's a huge amount of things. And not everything was absolutely perfect. I think a lot of it is pretty darn good, but my mind keeps kind of reaching back to the immediate. I need to reach back to way back, and I have an outstanding track record of producing content. So, what I probably would do is a gratitude list of what I've done. That's kind of a connection to other things, and probably a portfolio that's right in my face all the time about all those things I've done. And realizing that the reason I care is a really good motivator. I care about the people I'm writing for, and I care about everybody who's attending. So having an appreciation, I think, is a good thing to just stop being so hard on myself. And doing an
Yeah.
inventory in my mind or writing it out, I'm doing consistently well. So the overthinking, and maybe some tools too, you probably will have of ignoring those thoughts in my mind and just stay focused and just get it out there.
Yeah, I love all of those. Yeah, thank you, Marina. That's fantastic. I mean, such amazing things that you mentioned in inventory, the milestones exercise, the timeline, the gratitude list, the portfolio, and these sound like action items. So if you're comfortable, you could write those down to kind of have them to work on in between sessions. So it would be, you mentioned the gratitude list you want to do. You mentioned a portfolio to see what you've done, what you can maybe reuse or work with in the future. And then your inventory, which is kind of a similar thing. So these sound like actions that you could work on. And when I'm hearing an action item as a coach, I might usually ask the client, is this sounds like an action? Is this something you want to write down?
Mm.
Um, yeah, you have lots of options. And also what's important is for you to celebrate your success. You mentioned that. Be a bit less hard on yourself. It sounds like you're coming around to that idea a little bit more. And that's just amazing to hear. I mean, for me, as someone that knows you a little bit, but even if we didn't know each other before this, I can hear it's in your voice, how much you love and care about these topics, and it's so important to you. So that comes through. So I want to acknowledge that. Yeah, what else? What else comes to mind in terms of your goal to overthink less and be a little bit more practical?
I think motivators, I see them and I subscribe to newsletters and all that and podcasts and such, but I kind of accumulate lots of them and I let them kind of sit because I'm busy running and doing things. So I think for me, like you said, Simon Sinek, there's some other people. Mel Robbins is another of my favorites, and I can't think of the gentleman right now, but a big marketing guru actually, who does a lot of this encouragement. Um, he has a book called something about delivering, something about shipping. His attitude is, do you know who I'm talking about? I'm
I'm
going to
trying to
Google
think
him a
now. It's
second.
not Tony Robbins, is it?
No, Tony Robbins is another good one,
He's another
but
good.
yeah, but the
Catherine
gentleman,
says Seth Godin. Could it be
Seth
that
Godin,
one?
thank you,
Oh, very
Catherine.
good.
Okay,
Thanks, Catherine.
and yeah, thanks, Catherine. Seth Godin, I just love that guy because not only does he talk about marketing, but he talks about motivating. And his book is about shipping good work. And he has a lot of little nuggets in there. I got a sample of it, and I'm going to be motivated after our talk today to go get that book. And his book talks about why, as creative people, we hold ourselves back. And that whole thing we're talking about, what I'm talking about the overthinking and so forth. And he has kind of like a commercial artist designer approach to just ship the good work and be selective and get that stuff out there. So I'm motivated to look
Hmm.
into that. And as an action item, thank you for the framework. As an action item, I will, put it on my Notion board or my Miro whiteboard, or even on the whiteboard on my wall. Watch a clip of Seth today from shipping, or, any of those things, and have something come to me every morning. That's what
Yeah,
I will do.
fantastic. Yeah, just with the time in mind, obviously the last final bit would just be the wrap up. So you have your list. What do you want to do? Like you said, you mentioned what you want to do next, and then at the end, I'd like to ask how that went for you in that little session that we had today, Marina. Any thoughts?
Oh my gosh, that was so good. Oh, we covered a lot. I felt a little, vulnerable, of course, but
Yeah.
I think a lot of people in this room have very similar tendencies and very affirming to hear your words. And I love the action plan and the structure. I think that's something that's going to help me so much, is not only motivation, support, but structure. So I really like that. Thanks for working with me today.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Thank
Send
you,
me the
Marina.
bill. All
Thank you for
right.
that.
Yeah, that was fun. Okay, so now we covered the big points I was really wanting to explore with you. And I wanted to talk for just a minute about personality traits. I think, and this is interesting, I've heard some people in the localization industry completely poo-poo all about personality traits. But I think it's very important to discover about yourself. So I like the 16 personalities. You've mentioned that. I'll put these links in the chat, by the way, everybody. Uh, it's probably no surprise. I'm an ENFP, and I used to be an ENFPT. I'm more of an ENFPA. And what that means is the ENFP is the champion, the cheerleader, very creative, but always wanting to support others, almost to the detriment of ourselves. And so I've become more assertive and action oriented than the troubled side of that, which is the T. Mario, what's your personality?
We're very similar. You may be surprised, but since we're connected and the way we are having conversations, it maybe comes through that we're in that similar. I am ENFJ with a T at the end. So that I think that is a protagonist, which sounds sort of like, the picture that they have these nice little cartoons, like 16 personalities is really nice, and it looks like a almost like a king or a warrior with a sword, kind of like leading people into battle, which is not how I see myself. But there is interesting bits in there in terms of intuition and the kind of feeling versus judgment, sort of like using a healthy combination of head versus heart, and very similar. And if you explore the career path that they have, it's kind of exactly this thing, coaching, mentoring, teaching, helping other people. You want to do the same thing. We're both in that category of wanting to give back and wanting to help other people. And that's where we're similar. The campaigner, the protagonist, they're in the same category. So I can't actually remember what each of the letters is for, but and I take them with a grain of salt, but this was so incredibly accurate. I don't know how they do it because it's you click through I think 100 questions in total, and you read it to your partner, to your mom, whoever, and it's just fascinating how it is literally a summary of who I am. So I was completely baffled by that. And take it with a grain of salt, but I think exploring your strength and your values, that's always incredibly important. And that's what that is a version of.
Absolutely. I think that's so helpful. And there's other trait analysis sites like Clifton Strength.
Yeah.
Clifton Strength is more of a work focus, maybe because it's
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah, my own coach was a specializing in the Gallup or Clifton strength, which is more, maybe a little bit more practical. Like how can you use your strength for, maybe after a layoff, or maybe you want to refocus, you're transitioning your career. You have to do an assessment of your strength. What are you good at? Maybe some people don't know what they're good at. Maybe you
Mhm.
have a gut feel, but you have actually no evidence that you're collecting these pieces from previous work assignments or previous roles. What are your strengths? Maybe ask other people, like, what do you think I'm really good at? And that's building your portfolio. That is building your inventory that you mentioned of your strength, your values, your belief system. That is a huge one when it comes to personal coaching conversations. You might believe in all these things. You might want to do all these good things, but maybe your belief system is holding you back. Maybe you come from a place where as a woman you weren't empowered, and all of a sudden you're trying to do good work as a woman and you have no concept of how to do that because it wasn't part of the belief system you grew up in. So these are really hugely important things to think about.
Oh my gosh, thank you for that because I think that really gives not only validity to why you're going to be using these things, these assessment tools, but also what you get from it. So we're about 15 minutes to the end, and I wanted to take just a few minutes to do some Q&A from our audience. And Mario, thank you so much for everything you've given us in just this short amount of time today. It's like a master class actually in the life and career coaching.
Oh, thank you. That's very kind. And I'm only at the start, so there's a lot of coaches out there, and my mentors, the people I learned from. But I have a huge passion for that area. And so a lot of people that do coaching, maybe you don't start from zero, because a lot of us, if you want to become a coach or if you want to work with a coach, you already have knowledge. It's not that you start from zero. And it translated very well into what I wanted to do. So thank you for that, Marina.
Absolutely. And it's no surprise that we've come to know you from Look Lunches and from other presentations. So it's really cool to see you're following this empathy track into work. And I think I want to do that too one of these days. So let's ask the questions to the group. Stefan, you were going to ask a question or have a comment about how you've done the reinvention in your life. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I wasn't quite ready with a question, and I apologize if I interrupted. But
Oh, you're fine.
I would love to talk to Mario a bit if I can ask him a question now for
Please
sure.
go ahead. Yes.
Um, it, I'm most fascinated, Mario, by the change that you've chosen because you, if I remember this correctly, lost your job at some point last year, and then you probably did a lot of self-assessment and soul searching as to what the best way forward was. And I'm thrilled to see that you've chosen a path that we're all dreaming about, Marina included. I think in a way, right? So many of us are coming to the realization that it would be great if we could have our own business. So can I be so bold to ask you, what's the biggest challenge been getting this off the ground for you?
Yeah, thank you for that. I'm obviously, again, the caveat is I'm still, getting started from the ground up. It's not a main business or, even to say the word a source of income. It's a passion project of mine. I'm very much in localization still. I work for Personia full time. The challenge is to do something on the side, and a lot of us that do that, like Marina included, Jay Shetty talks about this thing where we all have side hustles and we get started, and you wouldn't quit your job unless it makes as much income at least as your main gig, right? So yeah, I think the main challenge is to pick something that you want to do. In my case, I'm at the very beginning. I'm early in my career. A lot of times there might be an age thing. There might be how can I be a coach? I'm only young and only inexperienced. So the main challenge is to pick something you want to do and you skill up in it. Like my thing was to pick a good education for that. Pick a good provider where I can trust that what I'm learning is as if founded in evidence and research and all of that, because there is so much out there, like that everyone's a coach. We touched on that. It's not protected. I mean, everyone here in the room can be a coach, but why? How do I stand out? I mean, I'm at the beginning, so I don't necessarily know that yet. I just know I want to help people and I have something to offer. And so, yeah, I think I'm only getting started. But yeah, hope that answers your question to a degree anyway.
Did that answer your question, Stefan?
Yeah, so no, it's comforting to hear that you're facing some of the same challenges as all of us, I think, and remuneration is probably a big one
It is. It
for
is.
everybody that's in this
It
situation.
is.
I have a main gig as well, and I do content writing for other people and help them with their LinkedIn presence, etc. Um, I'm just trying to get as much knowledge from people that are going through the same path. And while the coaching thing is something a bit different, I think it has some of the same challenges
Yeah.
that I'm going through for sure. I think so. That's what interested me most about that. I'd love to, I'll ping you maybe after this, and I'd love to reach out and compare notes if you're interested in that. Maybe we can learn from each other and get some shortcuts as well.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Thanks, Stefan. And Mario, you had mentioned that everyone can reach out for a questions DM, and you're starting and you're going to be doing some sessions, but even just for brainstorming and some suggestions to help people get motivated, and everything we talked about today. When I take this recording and then put it out to the group, I'll also provide some recap in the newsletter. And so we'll be sure to have, and especially that fun chart that you have, that timeline exercise. I think all of those will be really good tools to keep coming back and doing that reassessment. And Mario, so I love the idea. This is like a side gig that you're getting going, but not jumping into. Some people are forced to start new businesses because they've
Mm.
been laid off, and I know there's been quite a few people in our industry that just are completely snowed and, what to do, that panic kind of sensation. Do you
Yeah.
have some advice for those people? Because we've talked about some of us who intentionally make a transition because we're not satisfied with where we are. We've transitioned because of, some certain things happening. But what's your suggestion for those who have a job loss and need to make some kind of courage moment, and how to figure out what to do next? Do you have words on that?
Yeah, thank you. It is interesting because counterintuitive. I wouldn't give advice as a coach. We talked about this, but from my own experience, I went through a layoff with Twitter, which was obviously one of the way it was done is probably one of the worst in the tech industry, the way it was handled. And this isn't to say, I'm poor me or whatever. It's more to say, you sort of try to learn from it. I mean, if I can say anything on it is that it has nothing to do with you. I think a lot of people think they take it personal. And if you have low confidence, you might think, oh, this is maybe performance related, or why me? And a lot of times it's so important, it has nothing to do with you. It has absolutely nothing to do with you. Sometimes it's chosen at random who gets to go. It's just a cost reduction exercise. In most cases, it's a business. It's hard reality that's how life is. What I find really important is to take a moment and collect yourself. I mean, in my case, I was panicking only because, you lose your job, you don't know what about funds. You mentioned remuneration, Stefan. It's we need to pay our bills. We need to pay rent or a mortgage and feed our families and all of that. So it's so important to have money come in. At the same time, if you can take a moment to just, refocus, take a break completely, because for your mental health, I think that was the big thing for me. I was able to go to Portugal and, have a little bit of time off. I was also keeping conversations going. I think it never hurts to talk to people. That's the other thing I would say. Not even to ask for a job. I mean, reach out to people and just say, I wanted to talk to you. Can we have a coffee virtually? Most people are open to that, 10 minutes, 15 minutes. And it's just to keep talking to people, and you never know what might be around the corner. Maybe they know a friend who is hiring, whatever it may be. You need to be proactive, but also take the time off if you can, a month or two or three, because that will be so important. And it might be the first time in your professional career that you have holidays, and they might be paid because you get severance. So then you have a month with no work, but you get a bit of money and you can, travel.
I
So
think
that,
it becomes a lot more, or it becomes more difficult. It becomes more difficult as you get older too, or
yeah,
it becomes more complicated because when you're younger, I mean, if I just had myself to worry about, it would be less of an issue,
Hmm.
I think. But we carry the
Yeah.
burden of families, and I have an
completely,
18-year-old that's going to college next year.
Yeah.
completely.
There's a lot of aspects, and I don't know how that is for you. I'm not prying, but
Well, that's
I've
a good point. No, and
Yeah.
and I'm telling you, Stefan, that the age thing when you get older, there's worry about less opportunities because it's a very ageist hiring system in a lot of ways, and it's
And it's not just
sound.
maybe about, not only about
Yeah,
age. I think it's
yeah.
about when the older you get, you're typically not in a starting position anymore. So people are going to be hesitant hiring you for lower positions, and are going to be hesitant hiring and making the investment on a higher position because that's a lot bigger decision than the lower position. So I think that makes it
Hmm.
really, really tricky.
Exactly. And then the
Uh,
family that you're responsible for. Thanks, Stefan. I really appreciate that. Looks like Svetlana has her hand up. Go ahead, Svetlana. What's your question?
I actually don't have a question, but I wanted to share a quick experience. First of all, thank you so much, Mario, of course, for coming here and congratulations on this tremendous enterprise. I wish you all the success. Seems like you're on a good track for sure. I did have a opportunity and a luck, and was just grateful for having done coaching with someone. And my experience was that you come with these specific uh, issues, right? Like they are also called limiting beliefs, for example, right? Like Marina, like, oh, I'm a perfectionist, or I have, or something like that, whatever, right? You come there and you think this is what you go there to solve. But what I appreciated the most out of these sessions was the fact that the coach doesn't, indeed, like Mario, you say, they don't tell you what to do, but they guide you, and they're like, ask questions where at some point you are the one who takes the lead. You are the one who actually, oh, this is the path that they're actually setting me on. So at some point I started coming there with questions rather than problems, and it just kind of like opened up something within, and I feel like that path continues, and I hope it never stops. So I think the role of the coach partially, or at least for me personally, was um, as a guide, someone who puts me on that track of self-discovery and like reinventing yourself. So if you have any thoughts about that, Mario, but if you agree or
Yeah, entirely. Thank you so much, Sudana. That makes perfect sense. The analogy that I like to use for myself and my business, if you will, is that of a tour guide or a mountain guide. That's A, because I love the outdoors and hiking and the mountains, and I put a photo of me and the mountain on my website, and it was random. And then I realized that analogy works because you go for a tour guide, you say, you go for a big group hike, you have to do the walking, you do all the hiking yourself. You have to carry your heavy backpack. You have to put one foot in front of the next, but you have someone to guide you, right? They maybe know the way, or maybe they can help you with a map or shining a light on that path and just is there to say, how are you getting on with the hike? What are you thinking about? And so I loved your piece on that. 100% agree with you. You might come talking about your career and we end up talking about something else. It might have nothing to do with your career. Something is holding you back for a very different reason. It's all connected. It's a holistic thing because this is your life. We can't say my work life is separate from my personal life. I mean, it's all connected. So I
Becomes
wish you,
bigger
yeah,
for sure. It's like a set of small realizations that turns into it could be just pivoting, I
yeah.
realize that.
I
Yeah.
completely agree, and we call it to hold space for the client. That's another way of saying it is we're there to as a sounding board, as a thinking partner. We're there to listen and to say, okay, what do you want to talk about? Because I'm not there to tell you what you want to talk about. You bring your own question, as you say, and those because you're looking inwards. I'm shining a mirror on you, and you're looking inwards. And I loved the idea of having more questions than problems. That is showing your coaching mindset, and you're already well on the way of turning it around into a more positive, into curiosity and all of that positivity. So thank you so much for that.
Oh, that's so good. Awesome, Svetlana. And thanks, Mario, for commenting. We have just a couple of minutes left. Nicholas had his hand up. Nicholas, can you ask your question real quick?
Yeah, no, again, it wasn't a question. It was
Oh,
more just to add to everything that you guys were talking about. So first, I just want to thank you both for sharing, and Marina, it was really cool, like for you to share your vulnerabilities, and Mario for your thoughts on everything. I was kind of like, as you guys were talking about mentorship, I was thinking that it's a lot like therapy for work, because also in therapy too, your therapist like never pretty much like doesn't make decisions for us, and they don't really tell us what to do exactly, but what they do is kind of guide you and try to identify the things that are blocking you from taking action, right? And so I just kind of wanted to make that comparison and see what you guys thought about it.
Yeah, thank you, Nicholas. That makes sense, and I have that in my coaching agreement. And a lot of times with clients, I want to clarify that mental health and therapy and coaching, they're not the same, and it's so important to highlight that because I'm not qualified to give you mental health advice. I'm not a certified or professional, medical therapist or anything. And this is so important because then the client needs to be the one responsible for any action, any inaction. If I say, do you want to work on this? And they say yes, they cannot hold me accountable. And I think with a therapist, the field is also a little bit more regulated where you have to show that you're clinically sound and all of that. So I think it's a difference, even though there is overlap. Again, I think the focus of the conversation. So again, mentoring, we talk about knowledge exchange. I think therapy is a little bit more providing solutions, providing tools, helping the person feel better. A coach does that too, but it's more put the focus really on the client, ask them what they want to do and how they want to do it. And yeah, I think they're very comparable and they might coexist. A lot of clients that come to me, they have a therapist and I have a therapist. It can coexist. It's just really highlighting that nuance, the difference of what I can and cannot provide as a coach. So thank you for that very important
Yeah,
point
for
because
sure.
it's crucial to keep the two separate.
Thanks, Mario.
thank you so much, Mario. You are amazing human being and generous giver to the community. And I'm
Thank you.
excited to watch you grow in this cool space. And everybody that's in the audience, thank you so much for coming here and spending time with us and hearing what we're having to say. Take care, everybody. Be safe and reinvent yourself. Be courageous. All
Thank
right.
you, Marina, for this wonderful opportunity. And thank you for all you do.
Awesome.
Appreciate
Thanks
it.
so much,
Appreciate it so
everybody.
much.
Take
Thank you,
care.
everyone.
Thanks, everybody.
Take
We'll
care.
see you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.